Coaches, we're going to get rolling here, and please forgive me, I'm actually going to keep the jacket on because it's just a little bit chilled in here, and I feel horrible presenting with a jacket on, so if you could bear with that. It looks like I'm just about to leave, and that's obviously not the case for the next hour and a half. Some of you, I know, probably attended the player session, so you have a little bit of an understanding of my background and some of the foundational principles that I teach by, but I wanted to share a story to just introduce the power of the mind in sports. Most of you as coaches are here because you understand the power and importance of the mental part of the game. But this is a true story about a whaling ship at the turn of the 1800s called the cruise ship Essex. The goal of this ship was to actually sail down the east coast of America, around South America, and end up in the Pacific and actually hunt whales for 2 years. That was the overriding goal of this ship. It took them a couple of months just to reach the Pacific Ocean, and at that point disaster struck. They got hit by a sperm whale and began rapidly taking on water and sinking. True story. This particular ship, again called the Essex, it makes the story sound a little bit like the novel Moby Dick, and if it sounds that way it's because the novel in real life is actually based on this real life story. But unlike the novel that really ends when the ship gets rammed, in real life the story takes on a tragic tale at that point that the ship gets rammed. All 20 of the passengers pile into a tiny little rowboat, basically their little survival boat, and they've got a very difficult choice to make at that point in time. The choices are, allow the trade winds to take you and carry you to Tahiti, the island of Tahiti, and that will take about a week. Now they've only got supplies for about 14 days. So they've got, that's choice number one. Choice number two, they can actually row completely against the wind, which obviously would be an arduous journey to say the least, and it could take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks and actually row themselves to South America. Now, the choice seems like a no-brainer, right? Row against the wind, go to South America, go with the trade winds, takes about 1 week to go to Tahiti. But as they were deciding this, one of the crewmen said, can't go to Tahiti, it's full of cannibals. And of course with that, remember now, it's the turn of the 1800s. The fear, uncertainty, doubt that was quickly permeated through the crew caused them to make a very difficult decision to actually row against the wind and try to get to South America. Here's where it gets a little bit dark. 3 months later, another whaling ship came across the rowboat. They hadn't made their way to South America. They had attempted to get to South America, but the winds were just too strong. And there was a guy in the front, one guy in the back, and in the middle there was a ton of sun-bleached bones. They had cannibalized themselves. True story, to actually survive, and there were just 2 survivors left. Why would I share this story? So dark and so somber, and not a story I would want to share with athletes. For this reason. It's strange when it comes to how fear in the mind of the athlete works, that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Obviously it's a bit of a cliche, a worn-out cliche in life that our mind is a self-fulfilling prophecy, not just for our athletes, but in our careers and what we want to do in life. That the places we think we want to go often will end up if we think that we deserve it and have the ability to achieve it. And in this case, it became such a terrible self-fulfilling prophecy that this fear, and please forgive the cliche connected to fear, F-E-A-R, future events that appear real, obviously changed the trajectory of the ship and the fortunes of all of these individuals. Power of the mind, it can't be overstated. There's a great quote by a guy called Bob Rotella. He's done some really good stuff in golf. I like some of his stuff in golf. He said this about the power of the mind. He said, I believe it's impossible to overestimate the importance of the mind in sports. There is no such thing as muscle memory, according to Rotella. Your muscles themselves have no capacity to remember anything. Memory resides in your head. Therefore, no matter how long you practice a skill, no matter how skilled you become, your muscles alone can't remember it and execute it when the need arises on the court. Your muscles and the rest of your body are controlled by your mind. Unless your mind is functioning well, when you play, your muscles are going to flounder. If your head is filled with bad thoughts, your game is going to be full of bad plays. If your head is filled with good thoughts, your game is going to be full of good plays. If your head is filled with great thoughts, your game is going to be full of great plays. The question that I want to try and answer in an hour and a half that we're together is, how the heck do we get our athletes to consistently have their head filled with great thoughts? What steps do we take? I believe when it comes to any plan of action, and hopefully there'll be a couple of things that will really resonate with you with this plan of action. Please forgive me for being such a simple guy when I say I believe the plan basically involves 3 elements on a very simple level. The answer to 3 questions, any plan. Where am I now? Where am I going? And how the heck do I get there? When you think about any endeavor in life, and forget about basketball for just a second, any endeavor in life, does it basically come down to those 3 elements? If you really want to figure out, all right, there's something I want to achieve, how the heck do I get there? Where does that start? You have to have a baseline analysis of your existing skill set. Then you have to figure out exactly how far I want to go, and then how the heck do I get there? Those 3 elements. So it's those 3 elements that I want to use to introduce the plan we're going to be putting in place. Now, when it comes to the mental part of the game, it's the one area as coaches and as trainers that we typically don't keep as many metrics on. As coaches, we keep metrics in everything. We've got some guys in the athletic part of the game here present from Belgium. We've got coaches who coach at really good levels across the game here. We keep metrics on everything. From an athletic standpoint, we keep metrics on aspects of say, speed and a radar time 10-yard dash or 40-yard dash, or maybe even the 100. We keep metrics on agility with the 5-10-5 agility scores. We keep metrics on strength with things like bench and squat and power with cleans, and all other types of metrics when it comes to mobility, agility, speed, quickness, and even cardiorespiratory conditioning. There will be some of you as coaches who held your athletes to certain standards and say, you don't deserve to wear a certain uniform until you've hit this baseline level of conditioning. And you do the same thing with skills in the game of basketball. Of course you track field goal percentage, as you should. Of course you track free throw percentage, as you should, and 3-point percentage, and rebounds, offense, defense, assist-to-turnover ratios, steals, etc., etc. We keep metrics on everything. And why do we do that? Because that's part of the plan in place. We need metrics which tell us, I'm here now, or my players are here now, this is where we want to get to, and hopefully we put skills training implement skills training to help us get there. We don't do that. We don't do that with the mental part of the game. And in the space of the year and a half here, I want to hopefully introduce some metrics that I've been using in college and with the two NBA teams that I work with that have been very effective. And it's taking the mental part of the game, and instead of handling the mental part and mental toughness with very broad brushstrokes, which I think is a mistake, it takes a very granular, laser-like approach to the mental part of the game. And what I mean by that is this. Very often I hear coaches talk about the mental part of the game, and it goes something like this. All right, guys and ladies, we need to be tougher this year. We just got to develop toughness so that we are the toughest team in the league or the toughest team in the conference. And that's okay, and it's good to talk about and elevate the need to be tough, but what does that mean for Peter, one player, versus another player? Where I might have one player who is an extremely confident athlete, almost to a point of arrogance, and it's that nice chip on the shoulder sometimes you want. You want some humility too there to be coachable, but you love that arrogance when you've got that positive arrogance and that confidence. And I'm describing Peter. But what about if that same player has some poise issues? So the second there's a bad call or no call from a referee, or the second something doesn't go his way, all of a sudden poise is out the window, i.e. the composure's out the window. And if you look at the model of the 4 C's, composure, concentration, confidence, commitment, when you lose your poise, what's the very next thing, coaches? Very next thing to go. You lose your poise, and all of a sudden now you've just lost your head. Very next thing to go is what? Confidence and your concentration. Your focus, when you lose your poise, your concentration immediately goes out of the window. And if you can't control it and recover from it, when you've lost your poise and you've lost your concentration, confidence is the next thing. You can look at the 4 C's like this. And hopefully this is not a permanent marker, whiteboard marker. Good. Okay, you can look at the 4 C's like this. But this terrible rendition of a 3-legged stool right here is how I want to describe the 4 C's. Just like you've got 4 C's, you've got 4 components of a 3-legged stool. You have 3 legs, and I apologize for the poor artwork, and you have the seat. But if you take, just like the model of a 3-legged stool, and some of you know where I'm going with this in terms of direction, you take one of those legs away from a 3-legged stool. If you have a 3-legged stool standing here, you yank one leg away. Humor me with an answer, please. You take one leg away from a 3-legged stool, what happens to the stool? Obviously, falls over. The balance or integrity of that stool is compromised. It's just like these 4 C's. It is not enough to give ourselves as coaches and trainers a check mark in the box to say, all right, I handled mental toughness today because we did a little bit of motivation or commitment training, or we did a bit of goal setting, and say, okay, we've got this mental toughness stuff down pat. we've got to take a holistic approach to all 4 of those C's. And that's really our goal with what we're going to be doing with this plan of action we're putting in place. So what we're looking at with these 4 C's is taking this concept of mental toughness and taking a very exact approach to mental toughness and breaking it down into 16, the 4 C's are still the big themes, but 16 discrete components. So that way we can actually measure and monitor improvements going forward if we take, again, mental toughness, break it down into those 16 components. So what do those components look like? There we go.